Hello my dear friends and welcome back to another Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. And today, we have a brand new tease for the Mandalorian and Grogu. As we know, Sigourney Weaver's going to be in the movie, and she's not given too many interviews about the film, but at the Toronto International Film Festival she spoke with Collider.com. And even though she was there to discuss her new project Dust Bunny, inevitably the subject of Star Wars came up. Now, Sigourney makes it no secret that she's not a diehard fan. She knows about the general outline of the Star Wars universe, the Skywalker saga, she's watched all of the films, but until working on the Mandalorian and Grogu, she hadn't watched any of the shows. But despite this, she's very excited for fans to see the movie. And there's one misconception about it that she wants to put to bed. And that is the common notion that the Mandalorian and Grogu is not a serious movie. She strongly disagrees with this idea, and that to me is really fascinating because from all of the rumours, from everything Jon Favreau and Pedro Pascal have said, the movie sounds like it's going to be a fun adventure and nothing more. But Sigourney Weaver disagrees, and even had something to say about the way Andor is being compared to it. The movie isn't even out yet, and fans are already talking about how Andor set the new gold standard, so everything's being compared to it at the moment, something which creators like Tony Gilroy can't stand. I think it's natural and valid for all fandoms to compare and contrast, whether it's Star Wars, whether it's Marvel, DC, Jurassic, Alien, you name it. Whenever there is a new project, be it a TV show or a movie, it's normal to want to size it up against what's come before it. We've been doing this since the original trilogy came out. And especially in the age of streaming where we've had a ton of different Star Wars shows, and Andor comes along and is considered one of the best. Of course fans are going to talk about it, of course fans are going to create tier lists and rankings and say that Andor is better than, I don't know, X, Y and Z. Of course it's fine to say that Star Wars can be lots of different things, it's perfectly fine to say you prefer Mando, or Skeleton Crew, or Ahsoka, or even the Acolyte, if that was your thing. I understand the point in the context of not wanting to put other fans down, but it's perfectly natural to compare and contrast. And so Sigourney Weaver was asked a similar question, and of Andor, Sigourney said, "It won't be as good as the Mandalorian and Grogu, just letting you know." And obviously there is some banter and some levity to her response. Of course she's going to say the thing that she was in is much better, but then she clarifies, you can't compare the two, because, quote, "It's a different world. They're both set in the same universe, but the tone of the movie, its pacing, its genre, is so different to Tony Gilroy's Rogue One spin-off." But this is where things get even more interesting, because then Collider tells her, well, presumably Andor is dealing with, quote, more serious and deadly stuff, whereas the Mandalorian and Grogu is a fun time at the movies. And you would assume based on everything we've heard, that Sigourney Weaver, who was in the movie, agreed with this. But she doesn't. She says, well, let's see, shall we? And I don't think she liked the comparison. Now this is where the optimist in me comes out, because I know a lot about the movie. I've shared some of the rumours and the leaks with you guys, things that I've heard, and it's always sounded to me like this movie is going to be very much, a family-friendly, just a fun adventure. As I said the other day, a few episodes of what was going to be season 4 just stitched together, nothing too serious. I've heard there isn't anything with Thrawn or any of the Ahsoka crew, so pretty much inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. But maybe we're wrong about that. Maybe the Imperial Remnant subplot is serious. We know Johnny Coyne's Warlord is in it, and we have no idea what role he's going to play. He's one of the few aspects of the film that is such a mystery, that wasn't spoken about whatsoever in any of the rumours. So maybe we shouldn't be so presumptuous. Maybe there are some serious elements to the film, and that makes me very excited. At the same time, Sigourney Weaver might just be trying to hype us up. She's part of the marketing, one of the biggest guest star actors in it. Another thing she confirms, but I guess this is no surprise to anyone, Pedro Pascal is definitely in it. Obviously he's the voice of Mando. She doesn't say anything about him removing his helmet, she doesn't mention if he was in the suit for any of the scenes, but if he was, then that is certain to excite fans of Din Djarin. And staying on the subject of this comparison between the two projects, we move on to our next update. Tony Gilroy has been giving some pretty interesting interviews in the last couple of months, and some of his lower key comments are resurfacing, and he was recently asked if he's watched The Mandalorian in its entirety, so now we're hearing the other side of it. We've heard from the Mando lot. How does Tony Gilroy feel about the Mandoverse? Well, we already know he gives great credit to The Mandalorian. If it wasn't for Jon Favreau's work, the success of Star Wars' Disney Plus debut, Andor would never have come about, let alone have 2 seasons. So Tony has praised the success of the show, but has he seen it? This was the question he was asked, and his response is pretty funny. He says, "I started watching The Mandalorian at the beginning, but then I lost my frequency. I couldn't watch it anymore. As cool as it was, I didn't find it helpful to know what happened after Andor." And that's pretty hilarious because it's a long time after Andor. Andor Season 2 leads up to Rogue One, then A New Hope, the destruction of the first Death Star, whereas the Mandoverse takes place after the Battle of Endor, after the explosion of the second Death Star. So there really isn't much overlap. Or maybe back in 2019 when he saw the first season, he didn't want any plot threads to somehow impact his own creative vision, even if the stories are years apart. But speaking of Tony and the Mandoverse, he seems to like an idea that I put forward. He's not responding to me personally, I'm not the only person who had this theory, but I love someone put this forward to him, and I love his response. And it's the idea that because some characters from Andor survived, like Kleya and Vel, but they don't appear in the original trilogy, there should be a separate project, presumably set in the Mandoverse, where they're hunting down Imperial remnants, maybe some of those that they knew back in the day. And so in light of this, Andor creator Tony Gilroy likes the idea in which the duo hunt after former Imperials following the fall of the Empire, with the assistance of Dedra Meero in a Hannibal Lecter-esque role. Gilroy says, "That's a hip idea. I'm sure Kathy will hear about that one. That's a good one." I don't know if he ended up bringing it to her, but as Kleya Marquis' biggest fan, I really hope they do more with the character. And Elizabeth Dulau herself said that she'd love to come back. That would really break the mold of the Mandoverse in the best way. A few days ago I spoke about reviving and refreshing. This to me would be the perfect way to do it, whether it's Tony Gilroy's writing or someone new. Lucasfilm needs to make the post-episode 6 political scene as intricate and deep as Andor made the pre-episode 4 galaxy. And it is doable. I've even seen amazing suggestions that they should do a First Order show. If they want to redeem the sequel trilogy, it's never too late to expand the formation of the First Order. Create some more pre-Force Awakens projects, but not in the same animated style as Resistance. Do something serious, a gritty spy thriller along the lines of Andor. And so finally, my dear friends, Andor Season 2 won 4 Emmys. Best Editing for a Drama Series, Best Visual Effects, Best Fantasy Sci-Fi Costumes, and Best Production Design for a Narrative Period or Fantasy Program. So I guess some good news, but the show was robbed in broad daylight. It deserved so much more. Not a single writing or performance award. That is insane. And it didn't win the only Emmy that Tony Gilroy cared about. The Best Original Music and Lyrics for We Are the Gore, the Gorman Anthem. But, pretty typical, Andor underappreciated. Tree found in forest, the sky is blue. But with that said, my dear friends, that wraps up all of today's Star Wars news updates. Did you enjoy them? Did you have fun? Please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new. We are trying to grow the Mandalorian community. And I thank you so much for watching. Check me out on socials, and I'll see you next time. May the Force be with you, always.